Today, I want to talk to you about using learning plans in your classroom to help increase student achievement. The goal with using a learning plan is to help students take responsibility for their own learning. Before you give students a learning plan, you first need to pull together student data. This does not have to be complicated. It can simply be the quiz you give after you've taught a skill. This is an example of what I use. You can see at the top there are CFA scores and there are review quizzes. The CFA scores are what they take directly after I teach a skill. The review quizzes are what I give at the very end of the semester or the quarter. This is just a simple spreadsheet I made in Google Doc. I use conditional formatting so that when they type their number in, it would turn the color to show them visually if they needed to work on the skill or not. So if they score below a 60, it would turn red. If it was maybe a concern, it would turn yellow. And then if they were pretty good at that skill, it would turn green. I want students to clearly know what skill they need to work on. There's a saying at the gym, don't skip leg day. We don't want students to skip the skills that they're weak in. We talk to students about having prescriptive instruction. Even at fourth grade, we want them to understand when you go to the doctor, you want them to treat the symptoms you have. Just like that, in the classroom, we want to treat their weak areas. We want them to reflect on their data tracker and find out what they need to work on first. For example, this student would need to work on NF5. Then they would need to move to NF4 because it still has a red area, and then to NF3. One of the main goals with using the data tracker and the learning plans is that we want students to know what their target is. We want them to know what the goal is and whether or not that they've hit that goal. Once students know their weak areas, we need a plan. So what is the plan? Let some of my students tell you.
This is my data tracker, and I know to work on NF4 because I have a red and a yellow. And NF4 is multiplying fractions, and then we'll go and do stage jams and help us get our score up.
This is our data tracker and plan, and every time my teacher is done teaching a skill, we take a CFA, and this is the first time we took the quiz, and then we had a different quiz on the same thing, and we tried to improve on our score, and I was really happy with MBT1 because I got from a red, which is a 50, to an 100, and I was not so happy with MBT3 because I went from a 100 to a 70, but the plan, so if I were to work on MBT1, I would go down to the MBT1 box and I would go to an ed puzzle, or I would learn about MBT1 with Learn Zillion, or I can do IXL and it'll take me right to it.
There are several things that all of my learning plans are going to include. The first thing is a great video that will reteach the skill. This lets me be in two places at once, so while I pull small groups, students can be remediated on their weak skill. I also am always going to include some sort of site that can reteach the skill in a different way. I gave the example of study jams, but I really try to use a variety. The last thing I'm always going to do is I'm always going to find a quick assessment to check for understanding, because the whole goal of this is to remediate a weak skill, so we really want to know, did they get it or not? The last thing I want to share are just some things that I've learned along the way. The first one is do not add random videos. This may seem to go without saying, but you can find videos for NBT1, NF6 all over the internet. This does not mean it's a great video to do what you want it to. I have found in my experience it's easier just for me to make my own than it is for me to watch 10 different videos. Next, if you can, split up the work with your coworkers. This can take a lot of effort to do on your own, but if you divide, you can conquer and save yourself a lot of time and energy. Next, you want to make sure that you're holding students accountable. I use screenshots all the time because it's a simple and easy way to make sure students are doing what they're supposed to. And last, just make sure you use your time wisely. While they're working on their plan, I'm always pulling targeted groups for small group instruction. I have found that using data trackers and prescriptive learning plans has worked really great in my classroom, and I hope it will in yours too.